right, my friends, welcome back to Restricted Republic. As we were preparing to go on the air for this broadcast, out came the following notification published on the Washington Times. Biden sends war power notification to Congress following strikes in Iraq and Syria. Biden states the United States stands ready to take further action as necessary and appropriate to address further threats and attacks. I directed the strikes in order to protect and defend our personnel, to degrade and disrupt the ongoing series of attacks against the United States and our partners, and to deter Iran and Iran-backed militia groups from conducting or supporting further attacks on United States personnel and facilities. Now, that is a major notification, especially when you put it hand in hand with what else the administration just did. Immediately after, as we know, Israeli defense minister says Gaza war has entered a new stage with an expanded ground operation. So much coming together at once. This story will involve Russia. It will involve China. It will involve Iran. It will involve Palestinian people. It will involve Israel and the United States, because everything is folding together so quickly. Now, Israel isn't always met with the success that they expect out of these offensives. Hamas war updates. Israel reports failed incursion near Gaza following hostage release. Why is that happening? It goes back to a lot of what we faced with the Vietnam War. There is many similarities. I'm going to cover those for you here as we move through this broadcast, so hold on. A lot of information. It's one of the most serious topics we may cover in our lifetime. We are looking in the face of war. When dealing with war, you deal with kill rate versus spend rate. That is not meant to sound anything other than black and white facts. For every Palestinian life, for every 10 Palestinian lives that are lost, one Israeli life is lost. So many would state that that should mean that this will be a rather quick battle, but I assure you it will not be, because there's something else in play. It's called spend rate. War with Hamas hits Israel's economy. Why is it hitting the economy? Because for every $1 that Hamas spends, Israel will have to spend at least $100. An example of this, the missiles you see being lobbed over from Hamas, the bottle rockets, cost Hamas about $500 to make. The anti-missile batteries that are shot off to knock those out of the sky cost $50,000 a piece. Quickly, you'll see the numbers change. And as strong as Israel is, they will only be able to sustain that spend rate for so long. So Hamas's interest will be to extend the battle. And we've seen evidence of that already, because they have taken the battle underground. But that's just beginning, because now we'll get into the war of the media. Hezbollah releases footage of a direct hit on Israeli Merkava tank. This is one of the strongest tanks in the world, but Hezbollah has been able thus far to take them out. That is not a step in the right direction for Israel. You see here on the battlefront the tank with a direct hit. How does this all play together? What are we looking at happen? Potentially a guerrilla war, not much different than the U.S. and Vietnam, not much different than Iraq. And if Hezbollah and Hamas are able to extend this out, it does not bode well for any of us. And how do we know that? Not only the war notification did we did not expect to have that in today's broadcast. What we expected to cover today was U.S. halts exports of most civilian firearms for 90 days. My friends, that is a mega indicator of what is to come. U.S. halts exports of most civilian firearms for 90 days. Where will those firearms end up? Will there be a draft? What are we looking at? So many indicators all folding together nearly simultaneously. The Commerce Department did not provide further details for the pause, which also includes shotguns and optical sights. but said an urgent review will assess the risk of firearms being diverted to entities or activities that promote regional instability, violate human rights, or fuel criminal activity. The truth behind that statement is more than likely they're going to need them. We're going to need more troops. And because we are spread so thin right now, where will those additional troops come from? And that brings us to Gen Z here shortly. This is a warning. A Navy aircraft carrier is heading closer to Iran. Did you hear this? It's just not that far away from Iran right now. Well within Iran's striking distance. One lunatic move could set off the next war, with the USS Roosevelt being that close to the Iranian shore. They have the ability to overwhelm its defenses if Iran chose to. Just a tip of the iceberg of the indicators that we're going to cover today. 2 mega ones already. Gun exports being paused. War notification being given to Congress by Biden. Again, just the beginning. Now, before we go there, if you haven't subscribed to Lisa's channel, please make sure you're subscribed. Or if you haven't subscribed, please do that today. Make sure your bell is checked to all, so you're actually notified of upcoming broadcasts. Lisa will put a link to my channel just above. As many of you know, we exchange platforms here and there to keep it interesting, to keep it fresh. Of course, this is the monster, and it's why we put so much time into it. But there's even a larger monster, and it's called Restricted Republic. If you haven't been there, it's a platform Lisa Haven and I created ourselves. This is news with no commercials, no interruptions, no sponsors, beholden to no one but our audience. It is truly audience-funded news, and the stories we can cover there, we can cover nowhere else. But not only the exclusive content, no, we can cover, and we do cover, and provide every single broadcast we do on that platform, again, with no commercials, no interruptions. It's your way of supporting us, so you can be assured you continue to get the news that matters, unbiased, unfiltered, uncensored, controlled only by you. Get there today, restrictedrepublic.com. Discount code, you ready for this? Independence. That's going to get you $4 a month for 2 years, plus 14 days for free. Discount code Independence in monthly checkout. Put that in there, $4 a month for 2 years, plus 14 days for free. We're going to continue to add more and more to that platform. And now let's get back to the story. We got so much to cover. Man, I never expected to see this, not this early on. Biden sends war powers notification, but again, just was shoved in there because it wasn't what we expected to cover. It's what we did cover. Biden warns Iran to not attack American troops as Israel-Hamas war continues. Iran, don't do it. But we're going to go ahead and send the USS Eisenhower out there. Last week, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin announced that the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower and Strike Group would be deployed to the eastern Mediterranean to join the USS Gerald R. Ford. That shift caused the White House to reevaluate this strike group's positioning is significant. In response, Austin initially said the Eisenhower Group would deploy to the eastern Mediterranean to deter hostile actions against Israel or any effort towards widening this war following Hamas's attack on Israel. So that is a direct reference, although originally it was said to simply be defending American interest. Austin says something a little bit different there. U.S. fighter jets strike Iran-linked sites in Syria in retaliation for attacks on U.S. troops. This all unfolding this week. What does Congress feel about it? Well, they're pretty much bipartisan on this one. They're in their support of Israel. And so this will continue on. You can even tell by what Kirby is stating. Kirby warns to expect more civilian casualties in Gaza as Israel targets Hamas. This is war, so you know where our footing is, and you know what the position of the U.S. government is and the administration. And on top of this, the U.S. deploys additional air and missile defenses to the Middle East. Army Air Defense units from 3 bases are deployed to the Middle East after 13 drone attacks. We are putting a huge amount of resources out into that theater. Right now, we are blaming it on those attacks to U.S. military bases. But when you look at the statements of Austin and now you see the statements of Biden, you know it is for something in addition to that, spend rate. Where are we going to come up with all this money? The units are bringing Patriot missile batteries and a terminal high-altitude air defense or THAAD battery to the region after more than a dozen drone and rocket attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria over the past week. What does the UN feel about this? Because this is where the problem begins. Everyone has been in support in the United States of Israel. The UN has a chance to condemn the actions of Hamas and what happened. So they have a special emergency session. They take a vote. And here is the results of that vote.
It's as follows. In favor, 88. Against, 55. Abstentions, 23. Having failed to obtain a two-thirds majority of members present and voting, draft amendment A/ES 10 L26 is not adopted.
I wanted to play the applause for a second so you know the temperature in that room and who their support is behind. In this case, happy that Hamas was not condemned for the actions of the attack to the Israeli citizens. This is a divided world now. Now, it has been. But now it is especially noticeable to anyone who is watching, who wants to see what's actually happening rather than what they believe is happening. Here's the Israeli Defense Forces making a very eerie announcement.
Attention, citizens of Gaza, listen carefully. This is an urgent military advisory from the Israel Defense Forces. For your immediate safety, we urge all residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to temporarily relocate south. Let me repeat. We urge all residents of northern Gaza and Gaza City to relocate south immediately. This is a temporary measure. Moving back to northern Gaza will be possible once the intense hostilities end.
I'll stop it there. He goes on to say that Hamas will simply use you if you stay in the area. And as we've seen, as shields, near military batteries, whatever it may be. And so the warning is out. Now watch what you see on the media. This picture is a quintessential example of that. Gaza looks like a wasteland from space in these before and after photos. The below image was prior to today's bombardment. So we have left. And then on the right after the bombardment. The problem with those pictures is it is not the same area. We, my friends, again, are in the midst of a war. So be very careful about the information that you digest. Israel attacks about 150 underground targets in largest incursion in Gaza Strip since the start of the war. Israeli targets Hamas subterranean city, key in Gaza war, which will go to extend this battlefront. This isn't a black and white battlefront. We had been preparing for something similar. Army is spending $500 million to train soldiers to fight underground. This way back in 2018. Don't tell me some of the indicators weren't there. Because they know in these mega cities or these superstructures that the majority is subterranean. So the military has to learn how to fight it. But to fight it, it's going to require soldiers. And so the question is, if the United States is drawn into this battle, as I've shown you now, it is as simple as an attack on the USS Roosevelt. Now that's just outside or right within Iran's reach. Is it something that happens in the Israeli theater? Hopefully it has nothing to do with nuclear armament, but it could. But if we're drawn in, does our military have the resources and manpower and people to fight that battle? It's why right now one of the biggest searches on Google is the draft. Now, there's no solid evidence that anything is coming. I'm going to start by stating that. No, the U.S. military isn't laying the groundwork for the draft. However, Gen Z is very, very worried about this. And why? When Gen Z is one of the primary forces that you see in the front line of the majority of protests that you've seen. 90% supporting Black Lives Matter, for example. Gen Z would be the people who would be drafted. I don't know how many Gen Zers you know. That doesn't give me much solace. It gives me great cause for concern. Fearful and grieving Gen Z Americans clash over Israeli conflict. 90%. 90% supporting BLM, and now we're going to ask them to go fight, potentially, a war? You can imagine the concern. Thousands of protesters here in the UK, police expecting 100,000 people to join a demonstration which is currently taking place in London. Why do you think you're seeing this? These have been the frontline protesters for years now. But what other indicators we have to face? We have the war notification going to Congress. We have gun exports stopping. We have the Roosevelt being driven out into the Mediterranean, just outside of Iran. We have Jamie Dimon selling 1 million shares. 1 million shares. We have gold. And this shows you that they've actually lost control of the system because gold pricing has skyrocketed. When that happens, it is showing you all the indicators are there. Showing you, too, that the system has lost control. But what about a level 4 travel advisory? They have one for Iraq. Do they have one for Israel? With everything happening there, you think there'd be a level 4 travel advisory out for U.S. traveling to Israel, warning the citizens not good right now? There is none. They don't want to instill panic in the public. I don't know how they're going to do that with Gen Z already panicking. But if that's not enough to add to all these things that have occurred in the last 48 hours, China aircraft carrier crosses into Western Pacific. On top of that, Iran and Hamas meet together in Moscow. Could you think about the implications if Russia starts providing weaponry when they just allowed Iran's deputy foreign ministry and Hamas representatives to meet together in Moscow? And it's why many of us are concerned for Generation Z, many of your children, I'm sure, or grandchildren. And it's why we will continue to focus on the moving parts of this battle, which is everyone right now digging in. So although Gen Z may have a message of please don't draft me, unfortunately that reality may come true quicker than most realize. Those are the indicators just over the last 48 hours. And again, this notification, as we're preparing this broadcast of Biden sending in war power notifications to Congress following the strikes in Iraq and Syria, and on top of that, stopping gun exports, I think we're going to see a lot more steps coming through very quickly. We will continue to keep you posted and updated to all the developments in, honestly, the most significant story in my lifetime developing before our very eyes, and we will continue to stay here and bring you all the details. We need you to get to Restricted Republic because I am positive and confident that there will be so many details that will only be appearing there for very good reason. Get there today. Keep up to speed on all the things that you will miss everywhere else because no one else will cover them. RestrictedRepublic.com. I love you all. Can't thank you enough for allowing me to fill in today. For next time. Whichever it was. Until next time. Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight. Signing out.